It's called the bad steepening because of how the yield curve actually changes. Let's back up a little bit. Let's do the background here. Inversion meant usually means, and it did in the current case, where long-term rates started to rise, but they didn't rise as far as short-term rates did, because the Federal Reserve is doing something the market doesn't agree with. So long-term rates are kind of pulled up, kicking and screaming, as the Fed pressures and influences the short end of the yield curve. So what ends up happening is the short end of the yield curve interest rates go up way more than the long end, where you have, I should probably change my hands here, you have this inverted curve. So short end rates are up here, longer end rates come down here. That's telling you the probabilities that something is going to go wrong is too high, and it's causing many market participants to hedge in a way that would pay off when interest rates go lower. So that's not just true on the yield curve, also Eurodollar futures, as well as certain derivative contracts too. So essentially, we lead in with the euro inverted yield curve, Eurodollar curves, which tell us probability something bad. The more inverted, the more there was hedging, the more there are concerns, which means, as I said before, the levels of inversion we reached, particularly in November and into December and January, suggested the 2008 type scenario. Not 2008, not a repeat, but a 2008 type scenario. We have recession, which we've already seen in global trade, as well as deflationary money, which is now breaking out wide open in things like Silicon Valley Bank, as well as these collateral runs, which I'll get to. Inverted yield curve, heavily inverted, worries, concerns, 2008 scenario. We had that up until this past week. What was next was some form of steepening. The yield curve inversion is not going to stick around forever. One of two things was going to happen. Either the curve was, and both of those things involved the curve steepening. It was either good steepening or bad steepening. In good steepening, what would happen is as short-term rates are up here and long-term rates are down here, good steepening is if Silicon Valley Bank was the end of this, or there was never going to be a Silicon Valley Bank or deflationary money. The recession was all a big scare. If that was the case, then we'd see short-term rates stay where they are or tick up as the Fed continues to rise, and longer-term rates would rise even faster, so that the yield curve would be, again, steep in a good way. That would have been a positive scenario. Like I said, the recession scare was just a scare. Silicon Valley Bank, just a one-off, no big deal. A bunch of fools who don't know how to run a bank, and that's it. But instead, what we're seeing is the bad steepening, where short-term rates are up here, longer-term rates have already come down a bit, and now short-term rates and long-term rates both decline, but short-term rates are declining much faster than longer-term rates. And eventually they get to be where shorter-term rates are less than longer-term rates again, and you've got the steepening. This is bad steepening because it tells you that the very things that the marketplace were worried about have arrived. Everything that was bothering all of these massive, sophisticated participants, pushing them to hedge, upsetting yield curves and turning them inverted, it is now here.